Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Property Investment Australia podcast. I'm your host, Lachlan Vidler, and I'm joined, as always, by my good friend, Will Sanchez. Will, mate, our first recording day for 2025. How you feeling?
Yeah, feeling good.
Yeah.
Ready to go.
Ready to go.
Ready to rock and roll, yes.
A little hot tip for our listeners. We may have recorded the one or two episodes that have come out in 25 at the end of 24 while we were enjoying a little bit of a break ourselves. But, mate, big year ahead, hey?
Bring it on. Lots to happen.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a big year for both of us personally, professionally, but I also think it's going to be a massive year in the property market.
Yes, this month, huh?
Yeah.
What's going to happen?
Well, I mean, I think given the inflation data that came out last week, so there's another little insight into when we might be recording this episode. The inflation data that came out last week, I would say we are in the best looking shape that we have been in a very long time for a rate cut. And I believe, I didn't actually look at it before I came in, but as of Friday last week, the RBA rate tracker had the market pinning a 95% chance of a rate cut at the February meeting. So obviously that is not gospel by any stretch. However, a lot of people are starting to feel like we are at that precipice, about to fall.
And
over
if
the
you've
cliff.
got a loan, you've got your fingers crossed and you've got your toes crossed. Let's do it.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, you'd be really hoping that you're on a variable rate and that you didn't fix at 6.5 or something 6 months ago, and you got 2 years to run on it or something.
Yeah. There's some attractive fixed rates, but we haven't done one in a while.
I actually get an email as a bit of a side note before we jump in, because we have a very good episode. I will let everyone know before I go on my side note. We're going to be talking today about investing in property without savings. So please stick around.
What? Can you repeat that one?
I said it, investing in property without savings.
Oh.
But I want to throw that out there so people don't just turn off while we're having a bit of our preamble here. But I get a very interesting email most weeks from a broker that just in the industry. He has a mailing list or whatever, and out to like other professionals, not just to consumers, I don't think. And most weeks it'll be like sort of the best rates getting around. And I got the email yesterday, and there was some good looking numbers there. I was seeing, I think,
Fixed, you mean? Or variable?
Both.
Yeah.
I thought both.
Yeah.
I mean, I think NAB cut yesterday or over the weekend or Friday or something.
Yeah, it's some pretty
They
good
cut their
rates,
fixed
yeah.
rates. I think it's just an interesting landscape, isn't it? I feel like everybody's just like sitting on the edge of their seats.
Just waiting.
They're waiting. They're ready to go.
Yep.
It's like
nail biting moment for us.
Oh man, it's like if you, when you go and watch. I feel like it's almost like horse racing, right? People are the horses are locked in the stalls. They're ready to go. It's that silence that's over the entire track before they open the gates and they speed
Then
out.
the flog happens.
Literally. I feel like we're that right now. We're ready to go, ready to open the gates.
Bring it on.
But, mate, huge episode, investing in property without savings, something that's become really topical because I think that, not that people have zero savings, right? Of course, I'm not necessarily talking about having literally $0 in the bank, but some of the things we are talking about, you could do with $0 in the bank. But definitely noticed, that there are quite a few people out there that earn good incomes, maybe they have a couple of properties, maybe they're just, been struggling a little bit with cost of living, but like more from the point of view of saving money, not because they don't have assets or things like that. Just, it's just been a challenging time for a few people to kind of keep every single duck in a row. And Atlas, like all the team at Atlas, like we've been doing a lot of things with people recently that have found, alternative ways to kind of invest
Different
in property.
avenues.
Yeah. And a lot of people have been able to either continue building their portfolio when they thought they might have been, like capped out because they already own a few, or, maybe they had a big expense and they had to pay that. So the savings have dropped, but they can still invest in other ways. So long story short, some really interesting things. I thought it'd be a good episode to kind of explore with everybody because a lot of people don't know. That's the thing that we've realized. A lot of people don't know about some of the things that we're talking about or going to talk about.
Yeah, sometimes you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah,
right?
You don't
Is
know
that what
exactly
you mean?
right. You don't know what you don't know. But before we jump into the episode, I think I want to take a big shout out. Man, we were talking about this before we came in, right? the numbers and response that we have had from our listeners over the Christmas break has been nothing short of insane, right? Over the Christmas break, we literally almost doubled our listeners, right? We literally had thousands of fresh new people find and start listening to our podcast over the break. I literally couldn't believe it. Look at the stats. Hooray.
Drum rolls.
But I guess big shout out to everybody who's a new listener. Big shout out to everyone who continues to listen in. We're so excited to be back for 25. We've got heaps of amazing things planned for this year. Talking to different people as well. We're going to start to bring on some guests as we start to get into the year. We're going to cover more and exciting topics. The property market is going to be fundamentally different to how it's been in 24. I'm super excited, but let's dive into today if you're happy.
Yes, let's get cracking.
All right. So, investing in property without savings. So, the first thing I kind of want to say to everyone is, even if you don't have savings, you still got to have money of some sort. You know? It's really hard to invest in property without access in some way, shape, or form to money, right? But we're going to talk about some ways that you just might not realize are methods that you could use to invest. But generally speaking, and of course, you know, like if you're going to use a buyer's agent, for example, there's going to be a slightly higher cost because you got to pay a professional, right? If you do it yourself,
it's an investment, not a cost. You got to remember.
You know what? It's an investment. I like that.
Yeah, it's how you frame it.
Well, I mean, like, so I actually recorded what's it called?
Oh, but think about that, right? So if Will is going to buy a property for $550,
yeah,
then Lockie comes in and he buys for $450,
yeah,
and I paid you 20 grand, 15 grand, whatever the cost is.
Yeah.
That wasn't a cost. You did a massive favor.
Yeah.
And you saved me a lot of money there.
Well, story time. I literally recorded a video for Instagram yesterday, and it was a case study of a client, and I think we might have done this deal, but I don't know if you'll know this one. So it might. I can't remember if we did do this deal together. Anyway, we got the 12 months results. We bought a property at the start of 2024 for this client, a lady and her partner, and in 12 months, the property went up $150,000.
$150,000.
$150,000.
That's a lot. Last year.
Last
12 months. That's
right.
Insane.
And this wasn't a property that we bought for $900,000. This was a property. I can't remember the exact number. I think it was like. I think we bought it for $397.
$397.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I think we bought it for $397.
Oh, it wasn't in New South Wales, I'm sure.
$397. I'm just trying to think what the numbers were. I think it was. We bought it for $397. We bought it for $397,500, and it was valued at $549. It was $149,500. There's gonna be an Instagram video that comes out about it shortly. Anyway,
cool. But I think I know who it is.
You think I know? You know who it is?
Yeah, they're my clients as well.
Yeah, I thought they were. Yeah. Insane result. Hey.
Yeah.
Insane result.
They bought a second one straight after.
I was gonna say,
right?
Yeah. But side note to what you're talking about, using a buyer's agent knows what they're doing. Like, you know, shameless plug. What we do at Atlas. They paid us, I can't remember the fee because obviously our fees have changed over time. I think they paid us like 14K at the start of last year, and we made them 150.
Yeah.
In 12 months.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a
worth it.
It's
investment, right?
Yeah, it's a no-brainer.
But that aside, that was a massive tangent, a massive tangent. You typically need...
But it links to what we're saying,
It does link, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to typically need anywhere from about $80,000 to $100,000, right? And like I said, it doesn't mean it necessarily needs to be savings, because we're going to talk through some of these different ways you could look at it. But you're going to typically need anywhere from about $80,000 to $100,000, right?
Yeah, from an entry point from 500 to 600 and thereabouts.
Exactly right. And then you got all your fees, like a little bit of a buffer, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, you use a buyer's agent. It is an investment. You're going to have
the
a
way
little
you
bit
structure
more.
it.
Exactly right. The way you structure, like there's all these factors that go, you know, are you at the 80 end or are you at the 100, right? And the 100, and I'm talking that's entry point, right?
Yeah.
So like 80 to 100 entry point. That's not like if you've now got 100, you're suddenly doing something different to an 80. If you're, for example, then using a professional, it might be the equivalence, right?
Yeah,
but it's about, you know, your time, your expertise. You know, do you want to make maybe $150,000 in 12 months off a 14, 15, 16K investment, or do you want to risk it yourself and maybe not do that, right? So regardless, you're going to need around that 80 to 100. And I think it's good to just call that out, because if you don't have that, that's okay. But if you're going to need some help or you're going to try and do it yourself, better to know that now and then start trying to save a little bit more or use one of these other methods, right? So we're going to go through 3 methods today. And now the first one, despite the fact we're talking about investing property without savings, I just want to cover off very quickly, is savings.
Yeah.
Right? And the reason I want to do it is not from any other point of view other than just trying to give people some tips. Because like we've both collectively seen that many people come through the door, and just some small changes can really supercharge somebody who may have some savings, but they're just a little bit short, or, you know, maybe they need a little bit more time, right? Because that is the most important thing, is it takes time, but that time's going to pass regardless.
No, I like that.
You said that. I'm stealing that. You said that outside. You said that outside the studio. I'm stealing your line. But that time is going to pass, right? Like I was thinking about something the other day, right? Tangent again, but I'd really love to do a PhD. I'd really love to do a PhD.
Oh,
right?
Good on you.
Good on you. Yeah, good on you, champ. That's what you mean. I'd love to do a PhD, right? Like everybody knows, I've taught at, you know, at the University of New South Wales. I've done bachelors. I've done, you know, multiple master's degrees, right? Like I've done a lot of study, right? And I've done it in property and finance and business and all that stuff. I really love study, right? But obviously, we're growing an amazing business and it's growing so fast. My time's a little bit sort of spread at the moment, and I've got other things I'm doing too. But I was actually sitting back and thinking the other day, way back in, I think it was 2020 or 2021 maybe, I was talking and I basically sorted out admission into a PhD program. I hadn't quite got it yet, but I was basically told if you do this, it's pretty much kind of done, right? Like I was right on the edge of that. And I didn't do it because it was at the, you know, it's still in the very early stages of Atlas. And obviously I wanted to dedicate everything to the clients and to growing the business and everything. But I was sitting back and thinking that if I had have just started it, I could be only 12 months away from having it completed by now, because I obviously would have done it part-time.
Yeah, but if you look back in your business,
of course,
where would you
of
be?
course. But my point out of this whole big tangent story is that time passes by regardless. Yeah. And I remember sitting there thinking, God, like if I follow the traditional path of doing it, it's going to be 6 years part-time. So I'll be done by like maybe 2026, 2027. That's so far away, but it's now 2025. And if I had done it faster or earlier or both, I could potentially have done it by now.
Yeah, hindsight is a great thing,
you know. But that's my hindsight's great. But to link it back to all this, right? My point for all of it is, time is going to pass you by anyway. So if you've got 40 or 50 grand of savings, time is still going to pass by. And obviously, you want to get in as early as you can. We're going to try and give you some other little hints or tricks that you could do. But if it's about trying to save another 20 or 30 grand, and you know that you can save, you know, 10 or 15 grand a year if you really dedicate yourself, and you're thinking, oh man, like that's still another 2 years away. That 2 years is going to pass anyway. Yeah. So you may as well put your head down and start and like make those efforts, you know, because otherwise
implement systems.
Exactly right. You know,
in place.
2 years goes by and you won't have done it.
Yeah.
So time is going to pass by anyway. And I think the biggest thing I want to say is small changes matter, right? So for example, you get your paycheck. Let's say you get your paycheck every week, right? Instead of thinking, oh, I'll leave it all in one big account and then I'll just make sure I don't spend it, and I'll save and I'll sort of do that, or
one day,
a small amount.
One day I'll do it.
Whatever it is, right? And then you're going, you know what? At the end of the year, I'll have the savings sitting there, and then I'll move it into a different account or whatever. I can promise you, I could literally make this promise to anyone. It is so much easier to take $50 out of your paycheck each week, or $100 out of your paycheck each week, and put it in a completely different account before you even touch the money for other stuff, than it is to at the end of the year go, oh shit, I've now got to pull $5 grand from this account, right? Because you might not have it because you probably spent it if you kind of left it in there. So if you go and did that, you know, you took $100 grand. That's $100 grand. That's a big weekly. That's a big weekly savings amount. You took $100, right, or $200 each week out of, you know, like whatever your paycheck might be. I'm not saying you're not going to miss it, but what I'm saying is you're going to find it a lot easier to live just taking a smaller amount more regularly than you would a bigger amount at some point in the future.
If you do it automatically as well, because I think
100%.
removing the human part of the equation is probably easier as well. Set it up in automatic transfers straight away. Like you're not
Absolutely.
feeling it. You don't have to do it yourself. It's not time consuming.
Absolutely.
So get it all done.
There's so many people out there that say that. There's so many good resources. I mean, there's books and everything. But if you know that you get your paycheck on, each week on a Friday, set it up on a Sunday, whatever it is. Like you said, automatic. Just have $100 moved to a different account.
Yeah.
You've got the apps. Like you've got. I'm trying to think what it is. I think it was called Raise or something.
Yeah.
Or there's apps out there.
Acorns or something.
Acorn. That's what it was. Acorns. Yeah.
But they changed names, I think.
Did they? Yeah. I remember I used it when
Raise
it
or
first came
something.
out.
It's called Raise now.
Is it? It is Raise.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's called
Yeah.
Raise, yeah.
So you got that, but even some of the banks, right? You can set it up.
Lots of people, man. Lots of people use them.
You can set it up so that like if you pay like I was gonna say $2.80 for a coffee. I don't think anyone's paid that for years. If you pay $3.80 for a coffee or $4.80 for a
At the
coffee,
server.
you can set it up so that every transaction that goes through your account, it will round it to the nearest dollar, and then they'll put that difference into your savings account. So if you pay $3.80, they take the 20 cents that would have taken up to $4. They'll take that and they'll put it in your savings account. It's just these little things that can make a huge difference, and you barely even notice it, right?
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't notice the difference between paying $3.80 or $4 for coffee.
Yeah, and there's some pretty good banks as well offering that sort of those accounts.
Yeah, I mean,
ING, the UBank, I think as well.
Do as I say, not as I do. I don't do it. It's something I should do, right?
Yeah.
So
I actually do that.
You do that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm pot and kettle here. I'm saying to do something that I'm not even doing myself. But I think that it's
because I do it for the kids as well. Because I've got the set up the accounts.
Oh, so what it takes like you're putting across like a savings account for them.
Yeah, and I'm actually teaching them how to use a card. A debit card.
Yeah.
So I transfer money. I've got a Visa card for them each now. There's a new app called Spriggy. It's really, really cool.
Yeah.
And it teaches the kids how to use it. It's fun because if you teach them like literacy now, from early age, they'll learn how to save.
Well, we should hit up.
And I told them at the end of every year, whatever you've got in savings, I'll double it.
Hey, that's gonna get expensive down the road.
Yeah, I know.
You better hope they forget that as well. But we should maybe we should hit up Spriggy for a sponsorship since you're giving them a good plug on here.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, I guess the message out of that is small changes really matter. Have that automatic transfer, move $100 a week, $50 a week, have those roundup apps, whatever it is. If you've got some savings or you've got no savings, it is the easiest way to start. And I can promise you get to the end of the year, and even if you're not ready to go in property, but suddenly you've now got $10,000 of savings and you've never been able to save before, you are going to feel like a millionaire. Yeah. You're going to feel so good about yourself.
The feel of accomplishment, right?
Literally. And that will then motivate you to go more and further each year after that, right? Yeah. So to round it out, because to be honest, I've spent way more time talking than I wanted to on this part of the topic.
No, but it's good, man. It's good. I think it's a very important topic for people, I
guess it's just sort of financial awareness more than anything, right? Like, we talk a lot of property, but probably good investing comes from sound financial awareness and being savvy as well, doesn't it?
I don't have too much patience for those people saying, oh, you got to stop buying coffees. You got to reset it. I think if you can't afford a coffee, like you're on the wrong side of...
I think you know what? I completely understand where you're coming from, and to an extent, I agree. I think I'm going to take a moderated approach to it.
Switzerland.
Sorry,
Switzerland.
No, not Switzerland. More like somebody that just like came late into the war or something. Not out of it, but
I like that.
But just somebody who came a bit late. I think that for some people though, going and doing something like that teaches discipline that they might not have had before. And maybe once they learn that discipline, they can then go and do that. Yeah. But it's just about trying to establish habits. And I think a lot of people are really bad with good financial habits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So maybe it's like promising yourself you're going to spend the next 2 months, or maybe it's you're going to go and buy a coffee machine, right? You're going to go and spend $300 and you're going to go and buy a coffee machine, but then you and your partner aren't going to buy coffees, and each morning
check
you'll
the
make
return
it.
on investment first, guys.
Yeah. But something like that, right? The discipline to go, we're going to go buy the coffee machine, and we're going to prove to ourselves that we can actually just make our coffees at home, or go and get the instant coffee if you want to be, even cheaper about it. Not in a bad, cheaper way, just financially cheaper. But I think for some people it's about trying to learn discipline because they just don't have it. But the last way when we're looking at the savings front is loans from maybe parents or family. So I'll talk about one way. And I know there's another way that you want to talk about.
Loans/gifts, yeah?
Yeah. So I'll do gifts. Oh no. Sorry. I guess they come under the same banner. I'm thinking you can do guarantor stuff. I'll do the actual.
Okay, fair enough.
So the first way is like if you've got some savings, and I of course we understand not everybody's in this boat, but if you are, you could maybe go and approach your parents or other family members if you have good relationships with them, or it's just your circumstances.
It's a famous bank.
It is
Bank of Mum and Dad.
It's the most famous, right?
Yeah.
And maybe they might be in a position that, if you need 10 grand or 15 grand or something like, I'm sure for most people that might not even be okay, let alone something like 50, but whatever your circumstances might be, approaching them to say, hey, like I've done all this. Could you maybe give me a loan for 10 grand to just buff me up so I can get in faster, get in the market earlier? Or maybe they just might say it's a gift. You approach them, you give them the plan, you tell them you're going to pay it back. And maybe because they are your family or your parents, whatever, they might just say, hey, like we really appreciate you saying you'd pay us back, but we're happy to give it to you as a gift, right? You never know what it might be, and not everyone will be in that circumstance. But if you are, getting into the market faster is the best and most important thing. So I would highly recommend, if it may even be an option for you, to go and have that conversation with your parents or your family, whoever it might be, to see if they could help you out to get you there faster. Because if it's going to take you 6 months to save 10 grand, in 6 months, you might lose. You might lose out on 50, 100 grand of equity gain, especially with the market we're going to be going into this year. So, is it worth possibly swallowing a little bit of pride to ask for a bit of help when you've already worked so hard to get to maybe 80 or 90K of savings, or do you wait 6 months and sacrifice 50 or 100 grand of potential gains?
Yep.
So that's one way. Can I give it to you for guarantor stuff?
Oh yeah, absolutely. If for example, but what do you mean by guarantor? So we're talking about mum and dad have a property, or one or two or three, and there's a lot of equity available in the property.
Yeah.
And they can assist providing that sort of equity to be used towards a new purchase to cover any shortfall.
Yeah.
That's a great way as well. So that's going to increase the speed that you get into the market.
Yeah.
And there's ways to structure it. Not all banks accept it, but it's a great way to do it. It's a great way, and you can actually borrow the whole amount, the whole amount of the purchase price, including costs.
Yeah.
So speaking to a good broker will help you understand the ins and outs. It's not a policy for everyone. You got to explain what the guarantors are gonna what they're gonna be doing, what's involved. Because obviously the people don't like risks. Some of them, especially the ones towards the retirement age,
Yeah.
But if you explain to them the ins and outs, I'm pretty sure they're going to be able to help the kids as well.
And if I can just throw two things on top. So first one is just to make a really simple example for people. If you've got, say, 50 grand and you work out that you need 100 grand to do whatever it is that you want to do, what Will is talking about is that the bank can go and they can basically use the 50K that you don't have. It's a bad example. Too many even numbers. Let's say you need 90K and you have 50K. Let's make it easy, right? You need 90K and you have 50K. You can actually go to the bank, and if your parents have equity in their property, the bank can go and they can basically utilize the 40K that you don't have to take you up to 90. So 50 plus 40. They can take that. They don't literally pull it out, but they can basically utilize 40K out of the guarantor property, so the property that your parents own, rather than you having to save that. So, or as Will was saying, if you don't have any money, they could actually take the full 90.
Yeah.
Right. And then if you want to add costs on top, maybe they then take 100. Right.
Yeah.
You then, as Will said, like it's not a policy for everyone. You have to really make sure that your broker explains to you and how it works, and that not every lender does it, and not every job and circumstance, and your parents, like there's a lot of factors, but it's a way that you can get in without even having any money. So when we're talking about investing in property without savings, depending on your circumstances, it can be a fantastic way to do it. And most importantly, you can do it for investment properties.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot, man. Some young kids like now getting to the market fast. The parents are well off, they understand how property works. They are allowing the kids to use their properties like
Yeah.
19, 18. They started to work. They're helping them out. It's a great way. It's a great way.
Absolutely. And I think I really just want to emphasize that last point. You can do it for investment properties. A lot of people think it's only for owner occupiers, but you can do it for investment properties. Again, it's all circumstance driven.
And every bank is different as well.
Yeah. And as the expert himself says, every bank is different, but you can use it for investing, right? You can use it. It's not just to live in. So if that's a circumstance that might be, open to you, go and explore it, right?
Yep.
It's there. But the whole episode is about investing without savings. We've got a little teaser there at the end of talking about savings, about what you can do. Let's go on to the first, I think, biggest one that people don't realize, right?
Or underestimate it.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right.
Yeah.
The first and biggest way that we see people being able to invest in property or be in a position to invest in property, and they might not even realize it, is when they may have equity in the home that they live in. So the circumstance might be that you bought a home to live in. You never thought about investing. You just always thought, look, I got to buy the family home. I got to adjust my seat here. You got to just follow that very traditional pathway. You might have equity sitting in that property. And just in case anybody is confused about what we mean by equity, if whatever the value of the property is, you subtract the debt, and that what's left is your equity. So if you have a property that's worth $800,000 and you have $500,000 of debt, you have equity of 800 minus 500, so that's 300,000, right? So there is, if you've bought a property, especially even in the last 3 or 4 years alone, maybe even less than that, but definitely in the last 3 or 4 years, I would say that most people would have more equity in their property than they realize. Because if you bought that property for 600,000 and you took out 500K of debt, let's say you've owned it for 5 years, the 500K of debt might now be worth 480.
Yeah.
Probably you probably haven't paid off a massive chunk, but your property might have gone up from 600,000 to 800,000, and you might not even be aware of that. And I'd say that's the biggest thing. People, honestly, I can't tell you how many conversations that I get into, and we say, "Oh, do you rent? Do you live in your own home?" "Oh, I live in my own home." "Okay, do you know what it's worth?" "No, I have no idea." You just get so caught up in life, maybe not that interested in property, so it's really like it's just a place for you to live. Like you don't really know much about what's going on around it. It is the definition of what we call lazy equity.
Yeah. And chances are, because you live in it,
Yeah.
you're always, sprucing up this bit, improving this part, putting a pool in, painting the property, change the roof, you've got solar systems and whatnot. Next thing you see, the property's, 100,000 more,
Yeah.
200,000 more, without even realizing you've done it.
Absolutely. And I think that's another really good point. Your property might have gone up just by the natural market movements we've seen, but if you have gone and done that work to it, it's probably gone up even more than what just those market movements are. And something I want to make a massive call out on, because I get it all the time, and I know you do too, but I think I probably see it more because we're doing the buying side, is you cannot rely on those online valuations.
Oh, thank you, sir.
So if you're looking at buying a property and you go plug into like the free CBA or free NAB or the free like on the house
realestate.com, whatever.
realestate.com, and you see a valuation there, they are not accurate, right? Let me just call it out nice and bluntly.
Especially if you've done something to the property.
Especially if you've done something to the property, right? But let me just say this. If those companies had magically cracked the code on how to perfectly value a property with, computers, do you think they'd give it away for free?
Yeah.
I can promise you they wouldn't. Those companies or banks are all in the business of making money. If they had cracked that code, they would be making you pay for it, right? And that's why brokers, if I can speak about it for a minute, brokers
of course you can.
have access to valuation tools with the banks themselves that the banks will actually provide loans against. And these are computer-based valuations, and they differ significantly compared to the same ones that you see as the free tool on that same bank's website.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a case now.
Yeah,
as we speak. So we've got the property valued. I think it was with ING and some others. We've done I think 5 valuations, and CBA the other banks came at 650, and CBA came at 737. I think it was.
Yeah.
And that in itself would just allow the clients to go elsewhere.
Yeah.
And buy the
Huge,
second or
hey?
third property. Yeah,
Huge.
it's a big difference. Big difference.
Yeah. So if you own your own property and you haven't had it valued recently, right? And you know what? There are 2 really easy ways to do it, right? Actually, there are 3 really easy ways, right? If you've owned it for a really long time, jump onto one of those free tools, and they're not accurate, but let's say that you bought your property for 500 and it now says it's worth 900. It's going to still give you a ballpark that your property's worth significantly more than what you paid for it, right? You can't put any stock into it. Like, it could be worth 760 or it could be worth 1.2. But my point is that if you really haven't looked at your property's value for like 10 years or something, you can at least get some confidence that it is worth significantly more than what you paid for it, right?
You should hope so.
Right? But the 2 other ways that you can go is, first, if you don't know a broker, have a chat with Will for starters, right? Good little plug for you there, mate.
Thank you. Pat on the back.
But in all seriousness, if you don't know a broker or something like that and you're sort of confused, I can guarantee you there is a local real estate agent in your area who is just begging to give you a free valuation on your property. Sorry, it's not a free valuation. It's a free sales appraisal on your property, right? And the difference between the 2 is you can't take a real estate agent's sales appraisal and give it to the bank and they're going to say that's what the property's worth, right? Because often those agents will also beat up the value so that they can, it's almost like over-promising and under-delivering. They just want to get the listing and sell it for you, right? However, there is still some truth to it, right? Like if they tell you a number, if you want to be cautious, knock 50 grand off it, right? If they say, I reckon we could sell your property for like 850 to 890, knock 50K off it, right? So maybe they're selling for 800 to 850 or 800 to 840, right? But it's still going to give you a ballpark, right? Or your second option is if you do know a broker or you want to get to know a broker, go and engage with them, right? Go and engage with Will, right?
Aussie Newtown.
Aussie Newtown, yeah, right? But go and engage with a broker and just say to them, hey, I'm maybe thinking about investing in a property. I own my own home. I've owned it for this amount of time and this is my debt. I think I might have some equity. Do you think you could have a look? And then they'll be able to go and have and look at a few banks for you and see what the banks might come back with.
Chances are, if you're unsure, you do have equity. Chances are
100%.
Like
100%.
Obviously, we're gonna have to check servicing.
Yeah.
Depending on how much you want to borrow.
Yeah.
But chances are, you've got equity sitting there.
For sure.
Lazy equity, right?
Lazy equity, right? So, in the circumstance that you do have equity available, which I reckon is going to be the vast majority of people who are listening right now, right? If you can then service that debt, because like you were saying, like you've still got to be able to service the debt on any equity that you withdraw from the property,
plus the purchase,
plus then the new purchase, right? So you've got to have that servicing equation in your favor. But let's say that you did have it in your favor, right? You might be able to borrow the entire cost of the property. So if you got to buy a $600,000 property, I'm not saying you're going to take $600,000 of equity out of your house, but you might go and take 150 out. And then you obviously get the second loan for the new property. So, by effect, you don't have to put $1 of savings down. And that's what we're talking about today, right? How can you invest in property without savings? You don't have to put a single dollar down. Now, if I can throw one more, because I know you want to say something.
No, go on. I like it.
You like it?
I can know.
The other really interesting thing is that if you've got the servicing to do it, you might actually want to take out a little bit more than what you need, right? So what I mean by that is, let's say you needed 150K, right? For whatever it is, right? Let's say you're buying a 600K property. You want to put down a 20% deposit. That's 120K. You've got some costs involved. Let's just say that they round roughly to 150,000, right? So you have a $150,000 cost to buy this property. You might actually choose that you want to take out 200 and have 50 left over. And that 50, you might be thinking, well, I want to throw 10 grand of like quick value add renos into the property. And by that, I don't mean anything complicated. I mean like, do some fresh carpet, some fresh paints, like maybe change a couple of skirting boards, something like that.
Yeah, better rental.
Spruces it up, right?
Yeah.
Makes it look good for rental.
Yeah.
Makes it look good to get a little bit more rent. Makes it look good from a valuation point of view. You might actually get it valued a little bit higher. And then, if you are going to borrow with equity, odds are you're going to be out of pocket, like cash flow wise at the end of the year. That 50K, if you're out of pocket for say 10 grand a year or 12 or 15 grand a year, let's say 15 grand a year. If you took out 50, you've got over 3 years worth of cash flow buffer sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing where rates are going to be going this year, down for anyone that's still confused, right? The cost of owning a property is going to get cheaper. So you just might be trying to just make a little stopgap measure, right? You might be, say, down 15K this year cash flow wise. Ideally, you're then, making, 50, 80, 100K growth. But as rates come down, your negative 15 might end up becoming like negative 8.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not suggesting you borrow more without the need behind it, but having some sort of buffer in place if you're short on cash,
of course,
that's gonna give you more.
Circumstance driven, right? Circumstance
100%. Yeah.
All right. Before we move on to our final method, is there any other last points that you want to throw in, my friend?
Oh no, I think we've covered a lot. It's good because if we start going into
we can do
the
whole
specifics,
episodes, right?
Yeah, correct. I think it's probably best if we sort of break it down into another episode, then we can actually go through what's equity, what's usable equity.
Yeah. Because I don't know if we've actually done an episode on that. Maybe we need to do just a nice
because there's a lot to talk about, and people usually misunderstand equity and usable equity.
Yeah.
So let's pause it there.
And then can you service it as well?
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to get into our last point now. Really important. I just want to call this out. I mean, realistically, it's the same across all of our episodes, but especially for this topic because it can get a little bit, it can get on the spicier end, right? Nothing we are saying here is giving financial advice. If you are going to look at using this as a method, go and talk to the appropriate advisors, right? And if you don't have them, you can come and chat with me or me and my team at Atlas or Will and his team at Aussie Newtown, and we can put you in touch with those people, right? But the final method is through super, right? So this is one of the most powerful ways to invest in property without savings. And we actually did our numbers for January, and already a short month, right? Mm-hmm. You got the Christmas break, you got people on leave, you got people who are then like potential clients that are away and they're not dealing with it until they get back. School holidays, Australia Day, right? It's a short month, right? We did a lot of deals in Jan, right? We didn't have our biggest month, but we had probably a top 5 month, which maybe even top 4 month for Jan, which we were pretty surprised about. And we counted up, and more than half of the clients that we signed on were for super purchases, SMSF purchases.
That's impressive.
Yeah, which was shocking to us because 6 months ago.
What are the ages? Were they accumulation phase or retiring?
No, accumulation phase, right? So
that's interesting.
Yeah, like it was a diverse group of ages. Like naturally, there was a bit of a bias to people a little bit older, like 40 plus. Mm-hmm. But there was still some people in their 30s. Mm-hmm. So to give a really quick breakdown, right? Most people just have a standard super in a standard industry fund, right? Like your not HSBCs, your Host Pluses, your Australian Supers, all that sort of stuff, right? And your employer, yeah, exactly right? Your employer just pays into that, and then those super funds typically just go invest in the share market or bonds or things like that, right? And whatever you have in super is what they invest, right? If you got 50 grand super, they go invest that 50 grand. If you got 100, they go invest 100, right? You don't really have too much control over it. It's just, it is what it is, right? But you can actually go and manage your super yourself, and it's called a self-managed super fund. And there's, again, you need to go and get that professional advice to make sure it's right for you and how to set it up. But basically, you can take all that money that you have in super right now in your industry funds, and you can put it into sort of your own bank account, and you can then decide how you want to invest it with certain rules and restrictions, of course, but you can choose how you want to do it. And one of the most common things that people do is you can actually go and buy property with that money. Now, most people don't actually realize how much super they might have. It's something that is, like, to me, quite mind-blowing. You don't really focus on it, right? Mm-hmm. We go and check our bank accounts because obviously we've got to make sure we can pay our rent or buy our groceries. But most people don't go and check their super balances often, and some don't even check it at all, right? Like it just gets paid there. So that's one circumstance. If you go and compound that you have a partner or a spouse, that's now two people that might not have any idea how much super they have. And a lot of people would be surprised. They might have 100K or 120K of super, And if it's now two of you, you might have 250K of super. And again, it's not advice, but from what we've seen, what I've personally seen from our clients and like the way balances typically sit when they can go and do it, 200 to 250K is often more than enough
to get started.
Right? And some people can do it with less money, right? It's all circumstance driven, right? So if you can't, if you don't have any savings or maybe you're tapped out or something like that.
Servicing ability to repay, you mean?
Yeah, whatever it might be, right? It can be an amazing way to go about it. And just jumping off the back of that, another thing that people don't realize is your borrowing when you're buying through super is assessed differently to your borrowing in personal name. So you could be tapped out in your personal name. You might not be able, you might have 2 or 3 investment properties. You might have one investment property and you can't borrow anymore. But you might still be able to borrow through your super fund.
Yep.
Potentially. Again, I'm going to keep saying it. Circumstance dependent. You have to make sure you got the right advice. You have to make sure you got a good broker as well.
Yeah. The setup has to be done correctly.
Exactly.
There's a lot of compliance involved.
Exactly right.
It's very fiddly.
100%.
But obviously, we're not going to talk about the negatives too much. But you got to be aware.
You got to be aware.
You got to be aware.
Exactly right.
Because there's, I'm not too sure if we're going through order here, but there's lots of documentation. There's some setup costs, some maintenance costs every year. You got to be able to have that sorted as well.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Limited amount of options for lenders, a little bit higher rates, but again, it's a great option to get started if you've got that money parked on a side, right?
Yeah. Well, let's put that stuff to the side for a minute. We want to make people feel good about it, not depressed about it. But we can. Yeah, I reckon. Let's go through some of them right at the end. I think because then people can have a really balanced view, right? Because like everything, right? There's pros and cons to it, right? So that's the first.
And
thing,
it's
right?
not for everyone.
And it's
as
not for everyone, right?
Yeah.
So first point is, a lot of people you don't realize how much super you have, especially if you can combine that with a spouse or a partner. So you very well might have enough to do that, right? Second point is your borrowing is assessed differently. So if you are tapped out in your personal name and you can't borrow anymore, there is still a great chance that you could borrow through your super fund, right? Third point.
As an investment.
You
cannot live in.
You cannot live in it. Yes. So we're talking about investing only.
Yeah.
Investing only, right? As a third point as well, a lot of people are always banging on about they want to save tax. I get it. We never want to pay more tax than we have to. But for those people who are really conscious about the tax environment, when you invest through super, you're typically investing in a lower tax environment as well, right? Again, go and get your advice. I'm not going to run you through what your percentages are and things like that. But typically speaking, if you invest through super, gains that you might make.
There's some incentives there.
Yeah, you're taxed at a lower rate. So if you're really planning for your retirement, or if you're at your retirement stage and you have things in super, there might be a chance that you're not actually taxed at all.
Yeah, it's a great way.
Right?
Yeah.
You can invest in a really tax-effective way, okay? But go get that advice, especially on the point of tax in super.
Absolutely.
That starts to become a really complex topic and a very, financial advice-driven type of thing. So the next point that I wanted to cover about this is something that we've noticed a lot of, right? When you go buy property, there are expenses, of course, right? There are expenses that come with it. You have to pay your solicitor, you have to pay a building inspector, right? If you're going to use a buyer's agent because you want to be way more sophisticated, make sure you're buying the right deal and getting the best deal possible, there's costs for them, right? There are costs that come about, right? And when you're buying a property, I get it. Adding on costs for other people, it can just feel just a bit crap, it's a bit shit. You don't want to pay, right? You don't want to pay any more money than you have to.
Every time you put a hand in your pocket, it's like,
exactly right. You're already paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for this property, right? Paying more to other people, I get it, right? You just don't want to. If you didn't have to do it, you wouldn't do it, right? Let's be honest, you wouldn't do it, right? But when you're buying property through super, your super fund can actually pay those costs. So if you're going to go pay a buyer's agent, right? If you're going to come pay me and the team at Atlas, or you're going to go pay the lawyer, it doesn't actually have to come out of your savings. It can come out of the super fund's money, right?
Okay, hang on. Can you repeat that one for us?
When you're using a professional, the money that you would have to pay to them doesn't have to come from your savings. It can come from the super fund.
Oh my God.
Right?
Really?
I love that setup. Right? But it's a great point for people because if you're sitting there and you're like, you know what? Oh man, like I want to buy a property, but I don't know how to do it, but I can't afford a buyer's agent. well, congrats, you now can, you know? Or, oh man, like I know I've got to pay the solicitors, I got to pay for this other thing. I got enough money for the property, but I just don't have the money for the other stuff. Stamp duty as well, another one, right? Stamp duty costs can be paid by the super fund, right? So all these other costs that you might be, a bit worried about, again, go and get your advice. Make sure that it is accurate for your circumstances, but it can be paid.
I think we should do a whole episode on self-managed super.
I was going to say, we get an expert in for that one, right? So, again, like that is one of the most powerful ways. And if you are not sure about it, go log in to your super fund website, have a look at how much money you have. If you've got a partner or a spouse, go and log into theirs as well. Or don't you log in, that's probably a crime, but get them to log into theirs, and then check out how much you guys might have as a couple. And then if you're thinking that this might be something that you want to look at, go and chat with the advisors. If you don't have advisors, come and talk with me and my team at Atlas or Will and his team at Aussie, and we can put you in touch with those people who can advise you about whether or not investing in super might be right for you. But if you don't explore it, you're never going to know, all right?
Yeah. And what's the average returns you've had in the last, I don't know, 5-10 years?
It's
I've changed super funds once.
Well, that's it. And the biggest difference between, oh God, I'm getting tired of saying this, it's not financial advice whatsoever. The biggest difference is that you're not leveraging your super fund, right? If you got 100 grand in there, you're only investing 100 grand. If you make 10%, you're only making 10 grand, right? Which is great. That's fine. You made 10%. But if you can utilize leverage and you can take, that 150, 200 grand that maybe is yours or combined or whatever it is, and go put that into property, you now get to control an asset that might be worth 600,000. And then if you get 10% on that, you've made 60,000. So you've literally just had 6 years of returns, or probably a bit less if we take out compounding, 5.7 years of returns or whatever it is in 1 year, right? So it's a phenomenal way to supercharge your returns. And if you think about it, right, like if you could buy 2 properties in super over your entire life, right? Let's say you bought 2 $600,000 properties, right? Let's say that you got to that point that you could do it. And let's say that you then allowed those properties 20 years to compound.
Set and forget.
Let's just say 20 years, right? 20 years. Let's say you bought it, you bought them around 45, right? You and your partner, you worked really hard. You had the best part of sort of 20 to 25 years in the workforce. You accumulated enough money now, and you could buy maybe 2 $600,000 properties, right? To do that, maybe you've had to use 350K of super, right? I don't know. I'm making a bit of a ballpark guess here, right? But let's say that you had to do that. What's that? 120, 240 plus costs, probably a bit less than 350, maybe like say 320. So let's say you had a 400K super balance. You had to use maybe 320, 350, and you've left another 50K in there as costs and things like that, because you typically have to leave some money in a super fund, right?
Yeah.
If you now go, so you've now spent, what did I say? 350,
320,
320, 350, something like that. Let's say it was 350, right? You spent 350 on it. You had 400K balance. You spent 350. If you got 10% on that 350, you'd make 35,000. If you go buy those 2 600s, you're now controlling 1.2 million. You'd make 120,000 if they both went up by 10% in that first year. So you've gone from making 35K to 120,000, right?
If Atlas bought it, it's 20.
Yeah, exactly right. If Atlas bought it, right, we're going to get some great results, right? But let's just think in 20 years, right? Let's say that property doubles every 10 years. So you own 2 600K properties. They're worth 1.2 million, right? So let's say in 10 years' time, it's now worth 2.4 million as a portfolio, right?
Yeah.
10 years after that, it doubles again. It's now worth 4.8 million, right? Let's say that, you barely paid off much of the debt over that time. Let's just say, for the sake of the argument, right, it was, you didn't pay anything off the debt, right? Because that would be the absolute worst case circumstance of this, right? Let's just use it to illustrate the point. And you did 80% loans on it, right? What's that? That's 480K of loan on each property. So that's 960K of debt, right? When you first bought the properties. You had 4.8 million. 1.2 mil went up to 2.4 in the first 10 years. 2.4 went up to 4.8 by year 20. You got 960,000. Let's just round it to a cool million, right? That's 3.8 million, right? Let's say even in the worst circumstance, right, you paid 300,000 worth of your costs and all the other stuff, right? You're then left, that's $3.5 million. Do you really think that you would have been able to, just through the employer contributions and investment returns for another 20 years, taking your super balance from when it was at 400,000 all the way up to 3.5 million?
Yeah.
Probably not, right? I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying if you just took a regular path,
Very unlikely.
it's very unlikely you might have done that. So to really illustrate how the power of property and leverage can do it, you might have just fundamentally changed like your financial retirement, right? And that's not even including the fact that you should still be saving in your personal life. You're still going to get more more contributions from your salary, from your employer over that period. But just to really illustrate the power of super when you're doing it.
I like that.
So, one final point, not advice, just giving a generic scenario to really illustrate how compounding and leverage can really work, right? Make sure you go and chat with your advisors. But to round out the episode, if you don't mind, I'll fire them off really quickly so that we can wrap up, because everyone's been sitting here for way longer than we intended for them to listen to. But it's such a great topic, right? There are some limitations, right? And Will went through a bunch of them before, but just to really, really throw them out there, right? You know, you can't typically develop a property in super, right? That's typically one of the constraints on it. You can't go and take out equity from that property in the same way you can if you were buying it in your personal name or through other entities, right? It is a more set and forget investment, right? Because you can't really go, like I said, do that development, go and pull that equity. You're buying something that is a bit more set and forget, right? So you want to make sure that, you know, you don't want to maybe speculate on it. You want to typically make sure like it's in a market that's just going to be long-term steady performance.
But you can refinance it.
You can refinance it.
Yeah, you can refinance. So if you're
Change
paying
those rates.
Yeah, so if you're paying a higher rate, then you can go to a better rate.
Exactly right. So there you go. You can improve your financial returns. You might not be able to go develop it, but you can improve your financial returns by being savvy, right?
Yeah.
Typically, you're going to have to put down a bigger deposit, right? So typically the maximum is about 80%, right?
Yeah, 20, 30.
Yeah. So you got to put down a 20 or 30% deposit, which means you're getting sort of 70 to 80% debt, right? So you're going to have to put down more money, right? And you're typically going to get a higher rate than you would if you're buying, say, through your personal name, right? But that's just that's pay to play, right? That's just the cost to play the game, and you know, like everyone's in the same boat. You know, it's not like you're in a unique circumstance. Exactly right.
To build wealth.
And importantly, as Will said, you also can't typically live in it, right? I never say never, because someone out there is going to try and cook up some strategy on how you can do it, right? But, you know, it's important to recognize that typically you can't live in the property, right? So that's a few of the, you know, limitations to be aware of. And there are more, of course, again, for the 38th time on this on this section of the podcast, go and talk to your advisors, right? But in a lot of cases, you know, what people have told me, I'm definitely not going to say it's for everyone, but from what people tell me who we've worked with, for example, they say that in their opinion, for their circumstances, the pros have more than outweighed the cons, and they have been very happy that they've looked at a route like that to be able to grow their wealth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Like you said, it's not for everyone. If you've got the option, consider it.
Amazing. Well, mate, let's wrap this episode because we've gone far too long. People have been listening to us far longer than we intended for them to listen to. We've got our episode notes here, and funnily enough, we always write down sort of the time frame we want to go to for these episodes. This episode was meant to be 25 to 35 minutes, and we've well and truly blown past that one. But you know what? We hope that you got a lot of value out of this episode. We're so excited to be back with you in 2025. We're so excited for what we're going to bring on the podcast this year. We're so excited for what the property market is going to hold for this year as well. So we're back. We've been seeing a lot of great reviews coming on the podcast. If you're loving it, please give us those 5 stars, right? It helps us go up the charts. If you're loving the podcast, share it on your socials, right? Send it to your friends. Throw up a snippet on your Instagram story or something like that. Tag Atlas, tag Will. Do you have an Aussie Newtown Instagram?
Oh, no.
No.
Will.
Tag Will's Instagram. Tag my Instagram, right? I'm going to give a shout out to myself here. I'm going to be posting a lot more on my own Instagram this year. So go follow me on my own personal Instagram as well, because I'm going to be buffing that out with some stuff. So I think it's just at Lachlan Vidler 16. Go give me a bit of a follow. Go follow Will. I think you're just Will Sanchez. Will Sanchez. Is it just Will Sanchez?
Aussie. Oh, I forgot.
Yeah, that's all right. Go
Will.Sanchez.
Maybe in the next
Aussie, I think.
That's all right. In the next episode, we'll give Will his Instagram shout out. But go do that. And then most importantly, if you're looking for help in your investment purchasing and you need a loan, go and chat with Will and the team at Aussie Newtown. They're absolutely fantastic. Platinum broker and platinum store. Go and hit them up for your needs. And if you're looking to invest in property, whether it's through your personal name, through other entities, or maybe through self-managed super after this episode, come and have a chat with me and the team at Atlas Property Group. Our contact details are all in the bio. And until next time, when we're back with you in a few weeks' time, thanks for listening.
Thank you.
This is a Piccolo podcast production.